This is the Everyday AI Show, the everyday podcast where we simplify AI and bring its power to your fingertips. Listen daily for practical advice to boost your career, business, and everyday life.
This week in AI updates, we had the wildest 24 hours of new features that I've seen since covering AI daily for more than 3 years. I mean, first, we saw Google release their version of Gemini on the desktop for Mac, which could be a major focus point for Google in the future to start competing on the desktop, which is where the competition is clearly headed. Then we saw Anthropic release their Opus 4.7, which will likely and officially reclaim the crown as the top AI model in the world, but not sure for how long they'll have that. Then we saw Perplexity respond by releasing their Perplexity computer agentic desktop product after announcing it. Well, now it's out in the wild. And then we got what I think is one of the bigger releases we've seen in the last year or more, because we got immediately a preview of OpenAI's new SuperApp, at least unofficially, as they unveiled their new Codex update. And my gosh, this just created a new tier of computer use products. And right now, OpenAI is in its own class. Yeah, if you weren't paying attention every single day this week, you probably missed a lot of new features that are going to impact how you work. So if you can't spend hours every single day like I do keeping up with it, then you should probably be joining us on Fridays for our new segment that we're calling Friday Features. All right, so here is what you're going to learn on today's show. You're going to learn why proactive AI may become the default sooner than later. You're going to see why a second mouse is the small but big update, the smallest but big update we haven't seen in a while. And then you're going to see how personal computers might be back in a big way. And I'm not necessarily talking about OpenClaw, though we will give you the OpenClaw updates. All right, let's get into it. If you're new here, welcome to Everyday AI. My name's Jordan Wilson, and well, we do this every day. This is an unedited, unscripted live stream podcast and free daily newsletter helping everyday business leaders like you and me keep up with the AI craziness. I tell you what's new, what matters, how to use it, and how to get ahead and use that information to grow your company and your career. So if you're on that journey, like me, like millions of people around the world, awesome. Starts here, but make sure you go to our website at youreverydayai.com. We're going to be recapping today's show in the newsletter. So if you're out walking your dog or on a treadmill, or if your dog is walking you on a treadmill, and you miss something that we talk about, or you're like, hey, I need to go use that, it's all going to be linked in today's newsletter. All right. So let's look live. Let's talk about some of the big AI features that we have going on in AI world. So, and hey, I haven't done this in a while, but, live stream audience, if you have any questions about the tools, we'll go ahead and answer those. So yeah, let me know. Haven't done the answering questions in a while. So if you have questions as we go along to those on the live stream, let me know. So first, as I sip my very hot coffee, Anthropic. Yeah, we got by definition, for the most part, the newest and most powerful model in the world today with Opus 4.7. So this replaces Opus 4.6 as the new default best model for Anthropic. And they say it is meaningfully better at coding, seeing images, and following instructions precisely. So it can now process images at 3 times the resolution of its predecessor. And that part is actually very important. Sounds like a minor dorky detail. It's like, okay, why does that matter if it can process images better? Well, that means it can output them much better. So we're talking about even better diagrams, documents, screenshots, etc. So, I think a lot of people have been using Anthropic's products to create things like decks or to create spreadsheets that are well formatted. So now Opus 4.7 may be even better at that. And then Anthropic says this model obviously is not as good as the best model as it has, right? So we still have the unreleased Mythos model, which remains behind the cybersecurity only program called Project Glasswing. So Who has access? Well, everyone on a paid account. So no matter where you're using Claude, whether it's Claude.ai, the API, Amazon Bedrock, Google Cloud, Microsoft Foundry, wherever, the desktop, you're going to see Opus 4.7 as the new choice at the top of the list. If you are using it on the API side, good news for that, because it is the same price in terms of input output tokens. If you're building on the API, so it's 5 million input, 25 million out, $25 per million outputs. And there is on the Claude code side, there's a new feature called auto mode. All right. So you can get a new processing intensity setting for max subscribers. All right. Here's why it's useful. Well, as with any AI model, right, the better the model itself gets, the better results you're going to get. Right. So if I'm being super honest here, this is probably, at least for me so far, and I haven't got to play with it a ton, but when we went from 4.5 to 4.6 as an example, I saw a noticeable and measurable difference. At least it's only been a couple of hours, right? This is a very fresh model. I haven't seen that same kind of jump so far between 4.6 and 4.7. But again, I haven't had enough time to try, I think, what will truly be the most useful features, which is better looking slides, decks, etc. So who's going to find this useful? Well, developers using Claude Code for complex multi-step coding tasks. So I think that you are going to see better results on the coding side. Obviously, anyone doing computer use or document analysis that was frustrated by some of the image inputs, outputs, that's going to be a little bit better. And then enterprise teams that need Claude to follow detailed instructions precisely, you're going to see improvements as well. So here's what Anthropic said. They said Opus 4.7 is a notable improvement on Opus 4.6 in advanced software engineering, with particular gains on the most difficult tasks. Users report being able to hand off their hardest coding work, the kind that previously needed close supervision, to Opus 4.7 with confidence. Opus 4.7 handles complex, long-running tasks with rigor and consistency, pays precise attention to instructions, and devises ways to verify its own outputs before reporting back. The model has also substantially better vision. It can see images in greater resolution. It's more tasteful and creative when completing professional tasks, producing higher quality interfaces, slides, and docs. And although it is less broadly capable than our most powerful model, Claude and Mythos Preview, it shows better results than Opus 4.6 across a range of benchmarks. So at least in some of my early testing, I think maybe I had some of my kind of saved workflows maybe over-optimized for Opus 4.6. Or one thing that you're going to notice that you might not like with Opus 4.7, which is interesting because Anthropic didn't even mention this. So it is the first model with adaptive reasoning, okay? So when you are using the Claude models, at least on the chat side at Claude.ai, there is a feature that you can toggle off and on. And that feature is called extended thinking, right? I'm actually just double checking to see if they changed it. And this is strange, okay? This is why I love doing things live, because literally 30 minutes ago, it wasn't like this. Okay, there we go. Little bug on Anthropic side. They should probably figure that one out. All right, so normally you would have an extended thinking toggle. All right, so that forced the model to think a little bit more. So if you're still using Opus 4.6, you can force it to think longer. Right. So on Opus 4.7, this is the first one that you do not have that exact toggle. Instead of the extended, which forces the model to think longer, now you have adaptive thinking, which, again, Anthropic didn't even talk about this, but it does appear, and it's not even on their blog post release, but it does appear that the model will choose, in this case, if it will think harder or not. So some of the few test prompts that I ran, Opus 4.6 versus Opus 4.7, with the extended thinking versus adaptive thinking, 4.6 was actually better. And I think because the model thought, oh, for this one, I don't need to think very well, but it is intentionally a trickier prompt that I use to prepare for actually this show, right? Just to verify some facts and stats and things like that. And the 4.7 didn't do as good. So I don't know if it's the adaptive thinking, or maybe if some of my saved prompts were a little just too set up for Um, 4.6. All right. Next, let's get going here. Sorry, getting all my windows mixed up here. All right. So do see a couple questions. Lisa says, will the price of tokens for Sonnet drop? Maybe. I would assume right now, probably not, because a lot of people are using Sonnet on the API side for things like OpenClaw. So I would assume that Anthropic is not going to drop the prices for any of their 4.6 models aside from Opus 4.6. If they do, I'm guessing they probably won't. All right. AI moves too fast to follow, but you're expected to keep up. Otherwise, your career or company might lag behind while AI native competitors leap ahead. But you don't have 10 hours a day to understand it all. That's what I do for you. But after 700 plus episodes of Everyday AI, the most common questions I get is, where do I start? That's why we created the Start Here series, an ongoing podcast series of more than a dozen episodes you can listen to in order. It covers the AI basics for beginners and sharpens the skills of AI champions pushing their companies forward. In the ongoing series, we explain complex trends in simple language that you can turn into action. There's 3 ways to jump in. Number 1, go scroll back to the first one in episode 691. Number 2, tap the link in your show notes at any time for the Start Here series, or you can just go to starthereseries.com, which also gives you free access to our Inner Circle community where you can connect with other business leaders doing the same. The Start Here series will slow down the pace of AI so you can get ahead. Jackie here said, Claude helped me iterate on a presentation I gave yesterday. This morning, I went to high five Claude as we killed it. Yeah. One thing that stinks, about Anthropic in general, and they're the only one of the big 3 that doesn't do this anymore, is if you start, so all your old chats that you were working on with maybe Opus 4.6 or Sonnet 4.6, and you're like, oh, I want to see how, Opus 4.7 does on this. Well, you got to start over. You can't, change your model during the chat. So, but if you're using, skills, projects, etc., it won't matter as much. But if you have an older kind of project that you were working on inside of a chat, you can't switch over. All right. Our next AI feature update, and the rest are going to be a little quicker. So we had a Claude Code desktop redesign and the release of routines. All right. And FYI, I did go over this actually Wednesday in episode 756. So this one's going to be a little quicker. But Anthropic completely rebuild the Claude desktop app with a lot of those new features coming in Claude Code for Mac and Windows. The big thing is there's a new layout for managing multiple coding sessions at once, including a sidebar showing all active and recent sessions and a shortcut to ask side questions without derailing a running task. That part is really cool. So if you've used Cursor, right, you might be familiar with that kind of setup. It is Cursor-esque, right? But they also launched, which I think is the bigger news than just the nicer looking desktop app, and some new features in Claude Code. The big thing here that I don't think got enough love is the routines. These are essentially saved automations, a huge improvement on kind of Claude Code's previous scheduled tasks inside of Claude Code. So essentially in this, you define a prompt, connect it to your code repos, and run it on a schedule or on triggers. And that's the big thing. So you can set up a local routine, or you can set up a cloud routine. So little differences, obviously, with a local routine, you can access everything on your on your desktop, and you can have it use your browser as well. For remote routines, a little bit different. So you can essentially have them kick off once something happens. So, the big thing here that, again, people aren't really talking about is you can have it set off with a trigger like an API call. So essentially it's a webhook, right? If you know anything about marketing automation, so now all these different things on the web, right? Or anything you connect to Zapier can happen. And then that can schedule a routine inside of Claude, right? So anything that you would normally do inside of Claude.ai, right? think outside of this being inside of Claude Code, right? The downside is this lives inside of Claude Code, so I think non-technical users are going to be scared of it, but it's literally the simplest thing. I went over this on Wednesday's show. So that's the big thing, that literally anything now can happen on the internet. And then you can have a cloud routine that automatically runs anything that you would normally run. All right, this is a huge unlock for proactive AI versus reactive AI. So who has access to this right now? So the new desktop design has rolled out to all paid users. And here's why it's useful and who I think is going to find it valuable. So instead of working on one thing at a time, right now, developers can use kind of the new multi-agent orchestration features to get a lot done at the same time. And then routines are huge, right? That can automate the repetitive stuff for literally anyone, right? Whether you're, doing daily code reviews or something I'm testing it out for is, grabbing a lot of my stats every single day, things that I would normally manually do, go in and see, okay, how did yesterday's podcast do? How did yesterday's newsletter do? How did all these things from yesterday do at Everyday AI? A lot of times it would take me a lot of clicking and thinking. Right now I can get a great draft version of that with doing absolutely nothing first. So this is, like I said, a big jump toward proactive AI. All right. I forgot to talk about this, the new model updates, but benchmarks. We shared that in our community if you wanted to see how Opus 4.7 stacked up against Meta's Muse Spark, Gemini 3.1 Pro, and OpenAI's GPT 5.4 in Mythos preview. We did put that in our community. So next, what's new here? Big update, I think. Perplexity's personal computer. Yeah, trying to redefine the personal computer. So here's what's new. Perplexity Computer takes cloud-based AI agents and brings it directly onto your Mac, giving it access to your local files, native apps, and browser. So you can press both command keys on your computer to activate it, and then it can respond to either text or voice. It can see what apps you have open and suggest quick actions immediately. So it was announced originally in March with a wait list, but then any Max subscribers are automatically get access to it. And anyone that was on the wait list gets access to it as well. So now for the first time, this one is officially live. And to put this simply, this is Perplexity's version of OpenClaw, right? So here's, this is Mac only right now, FYI, and it does require the latest version of Mac, and there's no Windows version announced yet. So here's why it's useful. Well, it just works entirely across your Mac. This is one of those where, like OpenClaw, to do it best, you're probably going to want to have it work on its own dedicated computer, all right, because it will be able to read and write local files, open apps, browse the web, connect to cloud tools, all from a single conversational interface. So in the demo that Perplexity put out there, essentially someone had a list of tasks open on their computer, I think in Apple Notes. It just said, hey, via voice, go do my tasks, right? And it went through, pulled up all the right apps. I think it, created a calendar event, some of the basic things. So, give it a try, right? If you have wanted to try OpenClaw as an example, and it looks a little bit too technical, or maybe you're not, on board with some of the safety ramifications of OpenClaw, you want something a little more sandbox, I think Personal Computer is a great step, right? Things like Claude Code, Codex, which we're going to be talking about a little bit more here, you have a little bit more control, and it's not a truly kind of always on autonomous agent. Although with cron jobs, right, which is essentially just scheduled AI agent runs that can happen either on a schedule or on a trigger, it essentially turns it into that, right? Whereas things like Personal Computer from Perplexity or OpenClaw, it is much more goal-based versus task or project-based. So that's the kind of big differentiator. So here's what Perplexity said in their release. They said, today we're beginning the rollout of Personal Computer. Personal Computer is a powerful expansion of Perplexity Computer. We actually did a Perplexity Computer show about a month or so ago. It's actually really freaking good. So we'll see if I have time to test Personal Computer. I should have time in the next, month or so. too many updates, right, to test all these things all individually, aside from very topical tests. So it says Perplexity Computer brings the multi-model orchestration of to your machine. It can work across your local files, native applications, connectors, and the web to complete complex and even continuous workflows. Personal Computer makes Perplexity Computer a more personal orchestrator, elegantly hybridizing the local and server environments for maximum security and productivity. So when I did my original Perplexity Computer, not personal computer episode, I was actually really freaking impressed because it's really good. And here's what is different and unique about Computer from Perplexity, both on the web and on the desktop. It uses kind of that model orchestrator. So it has access to all of these different models. So even if you don't subscribe to Claude, to Gemini, to OpenAI, it's going to use the best model for the right job automatically, which sounds absolutely amazing, right? The huge downside is this burns through credits, right? I was on the $200 a month plan. I did one single task when this first rolled out, and it ate up 10% of the weekly allowance on a $200 a month plan. Yes, it produced something that was very useful, but eats the credits. So who's going to find this valuable? Well, like I said, anyone that is wants to kind of get into setting up a computer as an always-on agent and apparently just has unlimited budgets, because that's the downside. It will eat through pretty quickly. But anyone that's privacy conscious, or if you just have a Mac Mini, right, and you really want to turn that machine into an autonomous AI workflow, there you go. But right now, if you really want to get any benefit of it, you're going to have to be on that $200 a month plan for the max, and it is still fairly expensive. The good thing is it does include probably a little stricter safety guardrails, and user approval is required for sensitive actions. All right. Yeah, Jackie here says, OpenClaw does intimidate me. OpenClaw is great. I think some of the more recent updates over the last couple of weeks have made it a little bit more secure and a little bit more consistent. And we're going to talk at the very end of the show some of the big OpenClaw updates for the past week, but a lot of them have been on performance. All right, let's move on to Google is coming to the desktop. So finally, Google released a standalone Gemini app for Mac. So they previously had a Gemini app for Windows. Now Google Gemini is available for Mac, and it's built natively in Swift. So it lives on your desktop instead of in a browser tab. So essentially, you can share any window on your screen with Gemini so it can see what you're working on and answer questions in context. So here's the thing. Who has access? Well, it's free for anyone to download and use. You obviously connect it to your Google Gemini plan. So it's free to use, right? But it's not like you get new features by using this. It is still tied to the features that are available on your plan. So you do have to have a newer Mac. It does require an Apple Silicon Mac. So as long as you bought your Mac in the last, I don't know what, that's like 4 years, you should be fine. But if you have a real old dusty Mac, this isn't going to work there. So here's why it's useful. Well, no more opening a browser tab to talk to Gemini. It's now a keyboard shortcut away from using anything on your Mac, and that's the good thing. The big thing that makes this more useful than using Gemini in the browser is you can instantly share your window, because that gives Gemini instant visual context. So if you're working on a chart, or if you're trying to share the window and say, what are the 3 biggest takeaways of this presentation, etc., it just makes it easier without having to copy and paste everything over to Gemini, or without having to do a screenshot, right? So you can just instantly bring the context in. So here's what Google says, right? Kind of the big highlights. They say it's a shortcut to Gemini with a simple global shortcut. Gemini is instantly ready when you are to tackle any project, being able to give it contextual help, right? So based on any of the documents that you're using, so you can pretty quickly just give Gemini visual access to any other window on your computer, as well as you can still upload files. And it obviously brings a level of creativity, to your desktop, because anything, whether you're creating images, video, music, right, with the new Lyria 3 model, you can now do all of those things on your desktop. So who's going to find this useful? Well, if you're a Gemini power user and you find it sometimes a waste to have to do a lot of copying and pasting or sharing screenshots to get Gemini to do something, you're obviously going to love this. Google does call this the first step toward a fully proactive desktop assistant. And obviously, we're going to be getting more updates on that next month at Google's big I/O conference. All right. So what do you guys think? Are like, is everyone out there, are you using, at least for me, I'm using browser AI way less. I will say probably now between, Claude Code, Claude Cowork, Claude Desktop app, and Codex, that's probably like 60% of my use now. Being working on the desktop, it does just have a whole new unlock, right? Especially with the new routines from Anthropic and what you can kind of schedule now with Codex, which we're going to be talking about here in a minute. All right. Our next one, a small one, but pretty cool if you like free AI. All right. That's because Meta started rolling out contemplating mode for Muse Spark. So we covered Muse Spark last week, which is Meta's new model. All right. This is not open source, unlike their Llama models, but right now it is 100% free to use. So Muse Spark as a model itself actually did fairly well on benchmarks, which, some people were kind of surprised by. But given how much Meta invested like billions of dollars and paying individual researchers reportedly like $100 million, it makes sense that their model was actually pretty good for the first version of Muse. And Meta did say that they're going to have future variations of the Muse model. I'm guessing it'll be Muse whatever, right? Not Muse Spark, but Spark is supposed to be the smallest one. But what is new this week that you may have missed is they have a new contemplating mode. So here's what Meta says. They says, we're also releasing contemplating mode, which orchestrates multiple agents that reason in parallel. This allows Muse Spark to compete with the extreme reasoning modes of frontier models, such as Gemini DeepThink and GPT Pro. Contemplating mode provides significant capability improvements in challenging tasks, achieving 58% in humanities last exam and 38% in frontier science research. So, like I said, the reason why I think this is important to talk about and why I think people will find this useful is those other modes there that I just talked about, Gemini 3.1 DeepThink and GPT 5.4 Pro, you essentially have to be on a $200 a month plan to get that level of intelligence. That is like the creme de creme of AI models. Now you can get it for free. So although I think Muse Spark by itself, yes, it's good. It's a very capable multimodal model. But to be able to go use the contemplating is really cool. So how this works, it's 16 agents that are working in parallel. So it does break these complex tasks down. And it is kind of cool to watch how it breaks the task or the bigger project into smaller tasks. So like I said, anyone that needs a strong reasoning model, or maybe if you are only on free plans, which I would never recommend, right? Most of these plans, their baseline are $20 a month, and you should always be using thinking models. But if for whatever reason, you just can't pay for AI, it's at least going to worth checking out not just Muse Spark, but the new contemplating model that was not available at launch, but they did slowly roll it out last week. All right, let's get going to skills, right? We got more skills, this time inside Google Chrome, of all places. Google Chrome. All right, here's what's new that you may have missed. Google added a new skills feature to Gemini in Chrome on desktop. So a skill, overly simplified, essentially is a saved prompt that you can reuse with one click on any web page across multiple tabs. And that's the cool thing here about the new Gemini in the new Gemini in Chrome. All right, you can use that across multiple tabs. So essentially, here's how it works. After running a prompt in Gemini Chrome's side panel, you can save it as a skill. So the next time you can type a backslash, and then you can see all the new skills that you have saved, and it will run on whatever page or pages that you're viewing. And then skills are based or are synced to your Chrome account, which is cool because if you're someone like me that uses multiple computers, that's going to sync, and then you can use those skills across any of those. So this is rolling out to anyone on Chrome desktop who has set their Chrome language to the US. This is free. It does not even require a paid Google subscription. And that's why I think this is huge. So if you haven't used the Gemini sidebar on Chrome, you can even see it. I'm sharing my screen here on the live stream. It's just in the upper right-hand corner. So you just click that, and then you can ask and chat with Gemini on any page or pages or tabs that you have open. And now you can save all of those kind of prompts as skills to reuse them later at any time. Here's what Google says. They said until now, repeating an AI task like asking for an ingredient substitution or to make a recipe vegan, that meant re-entering the same prompt as you visited different pages. To make this easier, we're launching Skills in Chrome, which lets you save and reuse your most helpful AI prompts and run them with a single click. When you write a prompt that you'll want to use again, you can save it as a skill directly from your chat history. The next time you need it, select your saved skill in Gemini Chrome by typing /, clicking the plus button, and then your skill, then you select your skill, and then your skill will run on the page you're viewing along with any other tabs you select. You can edit your saved skills and create new ones at any time. So a great quality of life that I think anyone will be able to use. This is one of those, even just Gemini in Chrome in general, that even if you don't have a paid plan, this is just a great way to more quickly browse the web. For me personally, I spend way less time browsing actual websites than I did 2 years ago, right? But when I do browse actual websites, if I'm not using OpenAI's Atlas browser or if I'm not using Perplexity's Comet browser, then I'm obviously using Chrome and I am using the Gemini sidebar a ton. All right. Our last big updates of the week, and y'all, this one, absolute banger. Codex. Y'all, since Codex got released as an app, I've been the weird guy saying, this is better than Claude Cowork. This is better than Claude Code. I think a lot of people saw the word code in Codex and ran for the hills, but we got a ton of new updates in Codex in. This is the first step toward the SuperApp. All right, so let me first give context on what that means. So OpenAI right now has 3 different desktop apps. They have the Codex app, which is probably a little bit geared more toward developers. They have the ChatGPT app, all right, which is your normal ChatGPT. And then they have the Atlas app, which is their agentic browser. So OpenAI has announced that they're going to essentially be focusing on just one app in the future. And that is going to be their super app. We don't know what the name is going to be. But with this update yesterday, OpenAI did say this is the beginning of their super app. So the Codex lead in a media briefing did confirm this. And they said, we're actually doing the sneaky thing where we're building the super app out in the open and evolving it out of Codex. So I've been telling you guys, and I'm not going to stop screaming because Codex, it is, especially with this update, it's better than Claude Cowork. It's better than Claude Code, and it is not even close, especially with this new computer use update, which I'm going to confirm is why it's such a big deal. But let's talk about some of the details. So massive update to OpenAI's Codex tool. The headline, Codex can now control your Mac desktop. It has computer use that is literally in its own category. It can open apps, click, and type with its own cursor. That's the headline here, y'all. I've talked about how, yes, I love Claude's computer control, but one thing you've heard me talk about over the last couple of months is it screen jacks, it cursor jacks, It type jacks, right? So what that means is the only real way that you can use computer use if you're using Claude Code, or it works on Claude Cowork as well, is you can't be using your computer because you can't do anything else except sit there and watch it. And it's really slow. So obviously what this means to really get the true value out of Claude's computer use, you only should be running it when you're not using your computer, right? Which is overnight, essentially, at least for people like me. I'm in front of my computer all day. This is the step change here with Codex and their computer use. I watched this like literally a minute after they announced it, and I'm like, wait, how is this working? It literally has its own cursor. So I'm over here taking notes, as I tried this out yesterday and chatting with some of the Codex leads on Twitter about it. And they did confirm. I'm like, wait, so this operates at the operating system level and not the user interface level, which it's the only computer use product that does that now. So you can see it working on the interface, but it's actually working in the operating system. So it has its own cursor or cursors because you can run multiple of them at the same time. And you can be typing and having your own window or your own programs up, and it can still work around those. So this is freaking huge. So there's, aside from that, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more here, it also gained built-in image generator. All right. So using GPT-5 1.5 image, it also has a new integrated web browser inside of the app. It has a integrated file browser inside of the app. So a lot of these things that would normally be much slower for a computer using agent to do is now much faster because it lives inside of the Codex app and it's not pulling all of that context, from your actual desktop. It's just much faster. All right. So here's availability. It's available right now on Mac and Windows desktop, but some of these features are not available yet for Windows. All right. So there's also a new memory feature. It has persistent memory and it remembers how you work across sessions and the ability to even schedule future work for itself based on what you're doing. My gosh, talk about a proactive AI agent that literally works how a human works, but it doesn't interrupt you. This is huge. So this is why it's useful. It means Codex can test your apps, click through UI flows, and catch visual bugs without you even touching anything. It runs multiple agents in parallel without interfering with your own work. So yeah, unlike computer use from Claude that runs on their desktop, it doesn't screen jack. It doesn't mouse jack. It doesn't window jack, right? It doesn't take over all those things because you can't work at the same time as Claude's computer using agent. Also, the new memory eliminates the need to have to tell Codex how you do the work every single time. It learns your preferences, tech stack, and recurring workflows. And then it also will suggest things that it can automate for you. And then the scheduling lets Codex pick up work across days or weeks. So the same thing, how you can schedule routines inside of Claude Code on the desktop version on Mac. You can obviously do the same thing in Codex. So who's going to find this valuable? Literally anyone. Well, I think developers, obviously, who are using Codex, you're going to see it right away. But y'all, I was not wrong about this when I said in February when Codex was released and no one was paying attention to it and everyone's like, oh, Claude Cowork, Claude Cowork, Claude Cowork. I'm telling you, Codex right now is where it's at. That doesn't mean I'm going to stop using Claude Cowork. I love it. I'm not going to stop using Claude Code. I love it. I'm going to stop using their computer agent because it's slow and I can't work with it at the same time. To me, Codex is better. I think if you need something that looks good, right, from a design perspective, obviously the Claude infrastructure is better. If you need something quickly done, Claude is better. If you need something done right, it's Codex and GPT all the way. All right, so that is, and let me actually just read a little bit on what OpenAI says. They said Codex can now operate your computer alongside you, work with more of the tools and apps you use every day, generate images, remember your preferences, learn from previous actions, and take on ongoing and repeatable work. The Codex app now includes deeper support for developer workflows like reviewing PRs, viewing multiple files and terminals, connecting to remote dev boxes via SSH, and an in-app browser to make it faster to iterate on front-end designs apps and games. And then they said extending Codex beyond coding with background computer use. Codex can now use all of the apps on your computer by seeing, clicking, and typing with its own cursor. Multiple agents can work on your Mac in parallel without interfering with your own work in other apps. For developers, this is helpful for iterating on front-end changes, testing apps, and working in apps that don't expose the API. All right, so pretty big news. Let me know, live stream people listening on the podcast, what do you want more? Do you want more Codex? Or do you want more Claude Code, Claude Cowork? Let me know. I have my own preferences, but I work for you. All right, and real quick, OpenClaw updates. All right, just quickly here. This week, mainly focused on stability and performance as opposed to new features. They do already obviously have Opus 4.7 reports. Sub-agents get stuck fewer times. There was a big polish drop for stability and an active memory plugin. All right, so that is a wrap for the 7 new AI features that you need to be paying attention to. So from the new big model, Opus 4.7, Anthropic's new routines, which are very helpful, but the banger, in my opinion, on everything, yeah, personal computer might be good, but y'all, go check out Codex and their new computer using agents that you can work in parallel. All right, so if this was helpful, please, if you haven't already, go to youreverydayai.com, sign up for the free daily newsletter. Thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you back tomorrow and every day for more Everyday AI. Thanks, y'all.
And that's a wrap for today's edition of Everyday AI. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a rating. It helps keep us going. For a little more AI magic, visit youreverydayai.com and sign up to our daily newsletter so you don't get left behind. Go break some barriers, and we'll see you next time.